Incredible stuff. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Metabolism Workshop and Makeover. This is the beginning of your 30-day challenge. You ready? 30 days to a new you, 30 days to increased health, vitality. Some of you weight loss, some of you, increasing medications, some of you losing some other stuff. But, we've tried that before, haven't we? We're at a point in the year where over 95% of weight loss resolutions, or resolutions in general, New Year's resolutions, have failed. Already. And honestly, that would have been true about a week ago. So, even though we're about a week late, thank you for bearing with me and, making it back here. Help is worth the wait, but not worth waiting. Right? All right, the theme for tonight is Romans 12. Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. This is your spiritual act. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so you can test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing. Let me ask you guys something. Do you think it's God's will that anyone should live a lifestyle that induces sickness? No, that any of us should choose that. And yet when we look at the statistics, 95% of us are dying from lifestyle-induced disease. And for so many of us, the number one indicator that we see of that before anything else hits is related to the skin. And not really related to the skin. I feel like we should nip that one in the bud right off the bat. Your weight is not an indicator of health. That's one of the ways we need to exit culture, is we've come to look at the scale, right? I've got one in my console room, and judge that number, and sometimes even compare it to our height, how tall we are, and say, oh, I'm healthy or I'm unhealthy based off of the number. And there's no number in the world, including the number that I give you on a digital nerve scan, that tells you whether you're healthy or not, or sick or not. But what do we know about it? We know that obesity, an actual body fat percentage measurement, is the number one correlated comorbidity with coronavirus deaths. The average person who had died of coronavirus in the last 2 years had at least 2.5 comorbidities, with obesity being number one. The obesity rate in the United States last year was 42%. 42% of Americans are over 30 on the BMI index, have over a 30% body fat. It's not good. But obesity is not a normal byproduct of a healthy life, right? It's something we do to ourselves. And so we're going to dive into this thing because it really has so much to do with metabolism. And oftentimes I see people blaming obesity on a slow metabolism or on other people's skinniness on just having a fast metabolism. But there's so much more to it and so much lack of understanding that really comes into play here. And Hosea says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. Right? I like to use that word, understanding. Mm-hmm. It really applies here. So understanding what metabolism is. So sometimes it's just like, how quickly I burn off calories, right? Calories. We are inundated with calories in this culture. We eat a jelly donut, and we're like, oh shoot, I gotta get to the gym or get on my treadmill. I gotta burn off those calories. Problem with the donut isn't the calories. We'll get into a lot of the reasons why donuts is bad stuff. I don't need to teach you guys that. But you jumping on a treadmill and burning off a donut's worth of calories does not cancel out the donut. It doesn't mean that exercise is bad for you, but you have to understand that your metabolism is more than just food in versus exercise out, or energy in versus energy out. It's not just energy. But what we are talking about is the process of digestion and absorption, the conversion into energy. And when you look at a lot of the chronic diseases that are metabolic related, they have to do so much with that energy conversion. So when you take in food, first place it goes to your stomach, right? Passes through the stomach to that acidic environment. It starts to break down that food to the point where once you get into the small intestine, that the bile that comes in from the gallbladder and from the liver starts to break down some of those fats as well. And we start to see that consistent breakdown of the food source until the point at which the semi-permeable membrane, which makes up the internal layer of your small intestine, allows the food units to pass through. They should be small enough. At that point, they're taken into the bloodstream and they're transported by red blood cells to the cells, tissues, and organs that require the specific nutrients that they're broken down into. Now, you're consuming fats, proteins, carbohydrates, but even at just a purely energy level, not even talking about essential amino acids, essential protein, or essential fatty acids, and then the nutrients that are associated with high carb, naturally occurring foods like fruits and vegetables. Without even looking at that, your fat, it has roughly, depending on the type of fat that you're getting, about 9 calories per gram. Your protein has roughly 4 calories per gram. Your carbohydrate has roughly 3 calories. And so when you take in a gram of, let's say, pizza, right? Your body separates that all out and then breaks it down, and those calorie units don't turn into energy in your body until they're converted at the cellular level into something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate is your body's energy currency. It can happen pretty much one of 2 ways. It can happen through glycolysis in the cell, passing through the cell wall in this thing. Who knows what that is? It's a cell unit. It's small. It's an organelle. It's called the mitochondria. Who remembers the elementary school answer of what a mitochondria is? It's the powerhouse of the cell because it's responsible for creating energy. When you have a healthy cellular function, when there's nothing interfering with that transfer of those units into the mitochondria, it produces somewhere upwards of 30 ATP units. Now, when the cell, right, whether that's in your liver or your pancreas or your digestive system or your reproductive organs, is not fully accessible, whether it's because there's not good communication between the cell and the brain to tell those units to go there, or because it's toxic and it's covered in a toxic layer of fat, or just toxins in general are blocking it off, or there's endocrine mimickers that are disrupting the hormone transfer and keeping it from doing what it's supposed to do and keeping those energy units from going in, you have to go into basically energy production without oxygen. And it's a very acidic process. It only produces 2 energy. And so there's a lot of waste there. And it creates a lot of sickness based off of the byproducts that are released from that. So that's the glycolysis process, the Krebs cycle. There's a lot of science behind that, but it basically breaks down to how you produce your energy. But it's way more than just weight loss. Some of the most common indicators of metabolic disorder is something like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, obesity, obviously, diabetes, yes, autoimmune conditions, thyroid dysfunction, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, infertility, Cushing's disease, cancer, fatty liver disease, arthritis, chronic pain, and more. In fact, arthritis in the joints can very much be tied to how your body is processing that energy. And so we have to understand this. When you look at the statistics on Americans, it's way more than the obesity rate, right? 42% of Americans deal with obesity. 88% of Americans suffer from a metabolic disease, and most don't. Most people that aren't here tonight that feel fine are dealing with that. In fact, 1 out of every 10 are very likely dealing with metabolic disorder. Good question. Yeah. Next slide. So what are signs? What are warning signs? So symptoms, right? When you get to that 60% dysfunction, you start to get symptoms, these warning signs. Fatigue, that's a warning sign of metabolic dysfunction. That's not just the fatigue of working hard or having too much of a workout. Thyroid issues. One of the side effects of thyroid issues is fatigue. Suppressed appetite, not feeling like you're cold hands and feet, another symptom of thyroid issues. Low libido. Oftentimes that gets associated with heart problems. PMS or bloating. Hormones are starting to get disrupted. Anxiety or depression, neurotransmitters are being disrupted. Hair loss. You start losing your hair too earlier. It starts thinning out. Brittle nails. Absolutely. A sign oftentimes of thyroid issues again, but those hormones are off and the metabolic disorder is at work. Insomnia, not being able to sleep even when you're tired, that oftentimes goes hand in hand with fatigue. Infertility, not being able to have children when you want to. Irritability, right? And then obesity. Right? Just another early warning sign. You can be obese without having anything else diagnosed and be on your way into some of those more deadly conditions. So how do you know? Well, you can wait for these things, or we can start looking for the cause. One of the biggest causes of metabolic disorders are the metabolic disruptors. These are our toxins. Who's heard of BPA? Bisphenol A. It's very prevalent in what? Yeah, plastic. So if you're getting your food prepped and stored in plastic or wrapped in plastic, especially when it's wet or wet and acidic, like a tomato-based sauce, a soup, but definitely be leaching that out of your plastic. If you're drinking your water out of a water bottle, that's not BPA free. And in fact, I've talked to endocrinologists that say it doesn't matter if it's BPA free because it's got a different bisphenol in there that's an endocrine disruptor that we just haven't banned yet. Dioxins, atrazine, phthalates, perchlorate, fire retardants, lead, arsenic, mercury, PFCs, organophosphate pesticides, glycol ethers, a lot of the stuff that we find on our food, in our food storage, in the plastics that we use, things that, like this carpet, contain flame retardant. You don't want to roll around on. You don't want to breathe that in, especially not in the in construction. Question.
You said storage and cooking it. I didn't realize storage. Because you're cooking it.
Yeah.
Storage?
Food storage. So, not to name any brand names, but those plastic containers that have the snap lids. I'm not going to say that. You're going to get me in trouble. Yes. I didn't say it. I'll say yes, though. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but absolutely. But like, a plastic lid over top of food, so long as the food's not hot, you're not going to get that. But let's take like a coffee cup from the gas station. It's probably going to be foam, even if it's paper. What's it got on top? It's got the plastic lid, and then the heat comes up, and the heat actually activates those chemical bonds. If the steam hits it, it condensates on the top of the cup, and then what happens to that condensation? It drips down into the coffee. So the coffee is not necessarily bad for you, that plastic lid. And the softer the plastic, the more likely it is to leach into whatever food. Hot, cold, wet. So, yeah, absolutely. Now, where are we going to find lead? Women. What do we put on our face to look pretty? Yeah, that makeup, that lipstick oftentimes contains a lot of that stuff in it. But maybe not enough that should you eat a whole thing of lipstick today, you would die. But over the course of your lifetime, lead is persistent for up to 3 generations. It passes down through the mother to the daughter, from the daughter to the granddaughter, into the great-granddaughter. And so if your mom wore that lipstick every single day, as they did in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and tapered off through the 60s and 70s, and now it's kind of hit or miss depending on who you're talking to. You may have some lead in your system, not that. That's where heavy metal testing. And arsenic's another one. But that one's actually, you can find some in apple seeds, but some of those are, in trace amounts in some of our medications. Mercury, up until about 1990, very prevalent vaccines, and it's still one of the only shots that has it in there. Here, flu shot that has that mercury. So you look, it's not good. There's a lot of our medications have a lot of that stuff in it. So I'm very hesitant to do any medication anytime unless it's an extreme emergency.
When my doctor was checking the suburban stuff down with one of them that was currently getting the preservative is a petrochemical.
You're putting it directly into your bloodstream, bypassing the body's defense mechanisms. Yeah. So one of the other ways that we're getting disrupted is standard diet. It's high in not just fats, but fats that are already toxic. That have that imbalance of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, and creates this plasticizing layer around the cell, keeping those energy units from being able to be produced just by even getting in or out of it. It's also high in sugars, right? I think I heard that early on when we were talking about that. And the ultra processed foods also have a lot of preservatives. They have artificial colors, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, and these things are also known estrogen and endocrine disruptors that'll keep your body from being able to process them. So we talked about obesity continuing to rise. It wasn't 42% when I was, it wasn't 25% amongst the children when I was, right? And it's getting further and further away. But yeah, 1/4 of our kids are obese. It's not good. And so it's becoming a more and more consistent problem. And it's not just what we're putting in our bodies, it's also what we're telling each other. It's to the point now where we've got this movement. I'm not saying the movement is bad necessarily, but it's normalizing an obese body. And you're seeing it in Hollywood, you're seeing it in magazines now, where a big body is being sexualized. And it's not healthy, right? Every single person in this room is beautiful. It's not necessarily because of what's on the outside. We should be looking past the outside anyway. And this is part of the problem with all of this. We spend so much money on weight loss in this country, and there's more money in this country than any other country in the world. We do have the highest obesity. So tonight's not about information tonight, right? We can buy that gym membership. We can get on the Weight Watchers program. But if we don't actually do the stuff, you're not getting results no matter how well the program works, right? So yes, every one of you is beautiful, but it's not dependent on what your size is. It's what's inside that. And this idea that being large and sick is good is not good. It's not. It's a lie straight out of the pits of hell. Sorry for my language, but I believe that's actually where it's from. You look at the number of failure rate. It's 95% of these diets fail. And we call them fad because how many people stick with it? You get on the keto diet, you get on the paleo diet. Some of you, it's the advanced one. Jump on and then, just leave that by the wayside. And then what happens? You lose some weight initially, and then it comes right back in, on average, being 5 more pounds. So it's not good. You have to have something that's sustainable. But you have to understand, your metabolism very much has to do with your basal metabolic rates. And what this is the amount of calories that you would burn should you do nothing else except your normal. So what your brain burns, that's most of your calories. What you burn just by having your immune system constantly at work, having your heart beating and your lungs breathing, that all burns calories. And it creates energy, right? It requires energy, and that's to that basal metabolic rate. You do this all the time without even thinking about it. You're burning calories without thinking. Doesn't matter how big you are. In fact, the bigger you are, the more of this you have. right?
Mhm.
So just because you're thin and you have a high metabolism, your metabolism is actually lower. Because someone who's larger has to have a higher metabolism just to maintain activity. Make sense? You following? Okay, good. So one of the things that people do that throws this off is they do starvation, right? They jump on a diet, it's calorie restricted, and basically they starve themselves to the point where they start losing weight, right? Start shedding calories because they're burning some of those fat stores. Sometimes you're burning some of the muscle stores, God forbid, but it breaks down and you go into starvation. This is not sustainable. Eventually, your basal metabolic rate will drop from a point where you can lose some weight to a point where you just maintain again. And sometimes you even gain weight and keep that lower basal metabolic rate, which is even less healthy than starving. But we can do the same thing. We can make the same mistake with intermittent fasting. I find myself in the same place where it's very easy to skip breakfast, right? But breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and we need to treat it as such. Intermittent fasting works, but it has to work by making sure that that most important meal of the day is your healthiest meal. It doesn't have to be your biggest, and it doesn't have to be breakfast food. But when you break fast, you should be giving yourself the most nutrients, priming the pump to burn fats and proteins and nutrient-rich carbohydrates. Not just carbohydrates for the sake of carbohydrates, not pizza because you were craving pizza and it just happens to be noon and you haven't eaten yet, right? But actually nutrient dense. So the best way to do this is the way I approach everything. It's through the path that addresses all categories as they relate. We have to understand that nutrition matters. What we put in our body, the nutrients we put in our body, absolutely is at the key of what builds up our cells in our body. Our mindset matters here. We absolutely have to have the right mindset about this. Otherwise, it's so easy to get derailed because most people aren't talking about metabolism from a health perspective, just as a weight loss perspective, or weight maintenance, or healthy weight package, right? It's not about that. It's about your health. Because you can be skinny and get cancer. You can be skinny and have a heart attack. You can be skinny and have all these metabolic conditions. But if we have the right mindset about it, we can actually build health while getting ourselves to a weight, body mass, and body composition that makes sense for who we are. Oxygen is required for every cellular process in the body at some level, and fitness and movement are absolutely required. Well, you can't do that without it. Toxins will interfere with it. The healthy nervous system is the backbone, literally the backbone, the foundation of everything we're doing. So if we're going to fire up our metabolism, we're going to do so quickly in a healthy way. So what we've introduced this year is the 30-day max living challenge. So each of you got this sheet, and this breaks it down. So you may want to take some notes on this page because we're going to be walking through this. But just really quick, what this 30-day challenge is going to cover each of those essentials. It's going to kickstart our new year on the right track. So number one, we're going to get a progress picture weekly. Not for me, it's for you. Your progress picture is for you. My progress picture is for me, because if you don't have something showing you that it's working, then it's not going to work for you. Number two, a protein shake and daily supplements, right? Getting yourself those nutrients, whether that's a lunch smoothie or a dinner smoothie or a breakfast smoothie. 2 advanced plan meals a day, half of your body weight in ounces of water, a 45 minutes of workout daily. I don't recommend that all at once. Chiropractic adjustments as recommended with your home exercises as recommended. No alcohol or cheat meals, and 10 pages of reading for self-improvement. Okay. Not over the course of 30 days. 10 pages. Okay. Let's break this down. Progress picture. Why do we get that? For ourselves. Because it's too easy to get discouraged when you don't see improvements. And so often those improvements aren't on the scale. They don't show up when you step on it. Why? Because oftentimes, especially if you're doing the workouts every single day, you're going to be adding muscle mass. you'll see that scale start ticking up because muscle actually weighs more than body fat. You can start slimming down and adding weight if you do this in a particular way. And a lot of people actually need to be adding some weight. There's some people that are too skinny. And so getting that progress picture will show you that your body mass is improving, where the scale may lie to you on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis with what's actually happening. Second is hydration, right? So we're going to get half our body weight in ounces of water a day. So I'm 220 pounds, so I need 110 ounces. Now do the math for yourself, write that number down. That's how many ounces you need to be getting. I've had a trainer say that your actual water intake should be your goal weight cut in half in ounces. But I find that you can find yourself dehydrated, especially if you're doing the workouts the way that you should. So make sure that you're getting enough water there, and that number, if you're working out hard, may actually have to go higher. But we aim at this every single day. One of the easiest ways to do this is to buy yourself a big water bottle and just count up the number of times that you have to fill it up on a daily basis and work your way through that bottle. There are also apps that are out there that you can put on your smartphone that remind you to drink and track that amount of water. Everything that from the Fitbit that goes with the watch, so the Apple Watch itself will actually have some of that built in. I see a lot of phones just building health apps now. It'll remind you to stand up after you've been sitting for a long time. It'll remind you to take more steps, and it'll remind you to drink water. So that's a great way to do that. Next is the reading. Reading is in line with exercises to the body. If you're not actively building your brain, what's it going to do? Yeah, it's going to shrink. It's going to start to wear out. If you only focus on the same thing all the time, you don't diversify your interests. What's going to happen to those areas of the brain that those other areas that you're not working? Now you'll end up with huge biceps and tiny legs, right? You forgot a leg day. So 10 pages of reading on a daily basis, and not audiobooks, actual paper books. And you can read a digital book if you want, but I find that it's just easier on the eyes, better for your eyes to have that actual book. So I'm not going to tell you which book you have to read, but self-improvement, not fiction, right? Not romance, era, fantasy, 45 minutes of workout. Now, I don't recommend doing this all. I recommend breaking this up. And I recommend breaking it up to a point where you're getting different types of exercise on a daily basis, or at least that you're getting some diversity in the type of that. I would recommend about 20 to 25 minutes of high intensity interval training, followed by 20 to 25 minutes of like flexibility, or a walk, or a jog, or something else later in the day. So you're breaking it up so that your metabolism, your metabolic rate goes up and then comes down and then comes up again, and then is allowed to take off. And that's probably the best way to approach that. No alcohol or cheat meals, and the reason why is when we're trying to get our metabolism and our basal metabolic rate to adjust properly, a cheat meal can set you all the way back to square one. And so if you're going to do this 30-day challenge the way that it's designed to do, every time you have a cheat meal, you start over. Right? And the reason we picked 30 is because the research shows that 30 is about the minimum you have to do in order to create a habit. And if we're going to create lasting habits of good health, lifestyle habits of good health, then it requires creating that. And so that 30 days is the minimum. Some of you might find that you have to do this 2 or 3 or 4 times in a row just to get those habits in. To advance plan, the purpose of that advance plan, number one, we want to burn that excess body fat. We want to detoxify the body. We want to reduce the inflammation, and we want to balance as well. So for each of you that are here tonight that have signed in, I'm going to be texting you or emailing you a link to the Max Living Advanced Plan shopping list. And if you're watching online, either during or afterwards, just leave your email address or your phone number in the comments, and I'll text you that as well. But this is just an example of what you're looking at. What are your protein foods? What are your fat foods? What are the high fiber foods? What are the starchy carbohydrates? What are those condiments and spices and seasonings that you want to add in for that? So this will be in that text message that you get later today, and you can look that up. Protein shakes. What do we do with protein shakes? Because protein is a thermogenic food. It requires more energy to break down than most foods do. The higher your protein intake to a healthy limit, the quicker your metabolism is. And so having a protein shake, protein smoothie daily, at least one, and you can do 2 a day. Replace one of your meals with a protein smoothie, and then making sure you're getting those daily supplements to make sure that those nutrient backbones are covered. Right? So what are those? So this is the backbone, right? If you do nothing else, let's make sure we're getting this. Because when you look at what's out there in your food intake, you're not getting what you need. Just even according to the USDA and the FDA's basic recommendations, even if you're getting organic food from the grocery store, the soil has been so depleted that over 95% of Americans are deficient in what's in here. So the number one thing in there is the multivitamin. The multivitamin helps you cover the bases across the board. So if you have to break this down further, the multivitamin is key building block number 1 because it helps you cover those layers. Number 2 in here, I would say, especially this time of year, vitamin D3. Your body requires about 5,000 IUs a day to keep yourself in the optimal range of 60 to 90 nanograms of vitamin D3 per deciliter. If you're getting less than 5,000 IUs a day, you're probably drifting down closer to that 30, which is where your medical doctor will say you're fine. But all he's looking at is the prevention of rickets, bone cell. But to keep your immune system, keep your heart healthy, prevent cancer, to do all the things that you actually want, but it's an essential hormone that your body needs and only gets from sunshine or sources that absorb it from the sunshine. Then you need that 5,000 IU. I would say during winter months, it's probably closer to 10,000. And it's also body mass related. Someone like me is going to require more than someone like Jan, right? I'm going to be closer to that 10,000 to 12,000. You might drift a little closer to the 8,000. But really what it comes down to is when you get your annual blood draw with your annual physical, ask them to get that vitamin D3 reading and make sure it's above 60 and probably not much higher than 90. Start drifting above 100 and we probably need to taper that down. Okay? Next one is going to be your omegas. The omegas are going to be what's building up all the cells of the body. The body's made up of cells at its basic level, and those cells, its outer layer, is a phospholipid bilayer, basically meaning 2 layers of fat with phosphorus. If you're not getting the right ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, which should be 2 to 1, then that's going to become very inflamed and basically block that energy transfer from taking place. So stop and bounce off. You won't be able to create those at ATP out, and you'll start having to go through that antioxidant process with 2 ATP out of the process. And so getting that optimal omega in there is absolutely essential. And then other nutrients that people burn through, especially in the stress-related culture of the United States, B complex, which is basically all of your B vitamins, B1, B2, B3, B6, B9, B12 are your major ones. And getting those in the right ratio to one another and what the body needs. It's water soluble, which means that if you get too much, you'll start seeing urine. That's very neon in the toilet. But if you're not getting enough, it's going to be very especially if you're getting half your body weight in ounces of water. And then the last one in there is magnesium. Magnesium is necessary for over 200 processes inside your body. And so you get enough here in a form that's not going to force you to use the bathroom every time you take it in the form of magnesium glyphosate. So this is the baseline. If you were to buy all those supplements in the recommended amounts all at once from me in their individual bottles, it would cost about $127. and you would have to measure out exactly which ones you have to take and how much level. We put them in the right amounts in daily packets for you for ease of use. The only thing you might need a little bit more of right now is vitamin D3. I like to vitamin D3 just in case I happen to allow my immune system to drop and I need to fight something else stronger, a higher vitamin D3 when you need it. So that's where I would start. From there, we have a metabolism kickstart blend. So that actually starts off with the max greens. And I love the max greens, partially because I struggle to get enough vegetables in there, especially green vegetables. I try, I really do, but I'm not great at it. Each scoop of the max greens powder or each capsule of the max greens capsule has between 2 and 4 servings green vegetables, so juiced, dehydrated, powdered. It's got adaptogens, which is an incredible nutrient that actually changes to what it needs to be inside your body. It can be an antioxidant if it needs to, which is really, really, the research on adaptogens is just starting off. I love this. We actually get the powder form. I like the berry because I'm usually making a berry smoothie, and I'll add some vanilla protein to that. So the greens powder is great. The detox system, right? So let's say you get too many of those toxicants around that cell that's preventing the transfer of energy in and out of the cell. The detox system is an intensive formula, a 2-step process, a 2-capsule process, one that you take in the morning and one that you take in the evening, that contains one of the most potent antioxidants on the planet, known as glutathione. That's not very easy to find in food. And when you do find it in food, like sulfur-rich vegetables, it breaks down when you cook it really quickly. So like onions are really rich in glutathione, but to cook the onion, which most people do with onions, that immediately denatures it. It also comes with precursors to glutathione. So if your stomach acid burns up a lot of that glutathione as it passes through, you're still getting the precursors so your body can make. It's one that you have to consume from your diet food. It also contains binders and cleansers in there as well. We'll go into this a little bit more, but this would be the next one that we get. And then that whey or plant protein, in the research, whey protein is the most supported at helping support healthy weight loss. And so we have 2 flavors of the whey protein. This is so fine that it actually melts into my coffee in the morning. So I'll put just a little bit of oat milk in my coffee. I'll put half a tablespoon or a tablespoon of this in my coffee. And because it's stevia sweetened, I don't even add stevia in my coffee to get it to taste the way I want. And just that much, you won't even taste, like it won't be a thick coffee. It just melts right into it. It's great. I haven't tried it in tea. I know a lot of people have tried it in tea and love it. It's not a tea guy for whatever reason, but tea's good for you. Drink tea. That's great. Plant protein, that's another very healthy protein. A little grittier because it's made out of plants, but it's for vegans and vegetarians that don't want to do a whey-based protein. One thing I love about our whey protein, it's from a grass-fed cow, 100%. You're not getting any corn in there, so any omegas that are coming through are that pure 2-to-1 omega-6 to 3 ratio that we with. So that's fantastic. And then if you need really a boost or a burn, our Metabolix burn formula, which we have limited quantities available of and are sold out online. It contains L-carnitine and the other ingredients from the Max Fit, so you're basically getting 2 for the price of 1. This actually helps to give it a huge boost to that metabolism from a nutrient-based perspective. So that's where I would start with those. Any of those supplements that I just listed off, actually 20% off tonight, just for being here. That's sorry, people that are watching online, that's just for the people who are physically here tonight. So anything that you need to get, we're giving you a little incentive to get everything there. And everybody got your Wellness Warrior Club. Yeah, these are the inaugural 2021 Wellness Warrior Club members. You have to come to a workshop to get one of these. You guys get to add an additional 6% off. So you're up to 26% off on those supplements. Tack another percentage off every time. Question? You go through the bottom, however long you're on the challenge for. So, how do we prevent metabolic disease by minimizing toxins? Let's jump into this. So first off, we have to recognize what the endocrine disruptors are, the ones that go in and shift our hormones at a chemical level. And that's actually going to start with pesticides. Where do you find those? Non-organic crops, some organic crops, even. Organic strawberries are still sprayed with a toxic pesticide that just happens to be rated organic. It's one of those foods I would rather find grown in my own garden because it's sprayed in every regard. Now, one of the most common pesticides and also most toxic pesticides that's not drawn out on that list is something known as glyphosate. Who's heard of glyphosate? No? Some of us? So glyphosate actually works very similar to gluten in that its mechanism of action is instead of blocking this process inside your small intestine, it breaks down the mucosal barrier between your food and the blood. And so bigger chunks of food than your body's designed to intake into the bloodstream are allowed in, and it creates an immune reaction. And so a lot of people get leaky gut because they get glyphosate sprayed on their foods, and it starts wearing down on that, especially when they consume a high concentration of processed, not just non-organic, but processed, because it comes in higher concentrations in those foods. Oftentimes, it's synergistic or really antagonistic against your digestive system when you consume it with something like gluten or something that's very similar to gluten that breaks down that digestive system. So when you get that glyphosate in the same levels, it breaks it down. There's millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits out right now against Monsanto, Bayer, because Bayer owns Monsanto, because of the cancers that are forming in the digestive system because of that. Flame retardants. So they're found in many fabrics. Most of you are wearing clothes with some level of flame retardant in it. You find this in new mattresses, new carpets, things that are soft that go on the walls or furniture, typically have flame retardants in them and are endocrine disruptors. Phthalates are found in many plastics, packagings, toys, PFAs, nonstick cookware, right? We like to make our scrambled eggs, but we don't like it to stick to the pan. And how it gets off of there is because it has phthalates in that pan, and it actually leads to all sorts of really bad disorders. In fact, if you were to cook with a Teflon pan and put a canary over top, just in a cage, not directly over top, so it has heat, but off to the side, the off-gassing from that Teflon pan would actually it's very toxic. So ceramic cookware is much better. Stainless steel, even better. Even better than that would be like that.
So what's the copper fat?
Copper, as long as you're not using it too much, because you can get copper toxicity as well. So you don't want to go into that. So you just got to be careful that your pan isn't leaking. In fact, if you get a ceramic pan, one of the reasons why it's lower down stainless steel or cast iron is the ceramic lining over down underneath is ceramic. You have to watch out for the good stuff. Cast iron, you don't want to scrape like you have metal fork on the cast iron. You'll get heavy metal, you'll get too much iron that your body can't digest into your digestive system as well. So toxicants can really be a problem. But BPA, obviously, we talked about that in plastics as well. And these turn into obesogens. In fact, that the National Academy of Naturopathic Physicians, their statement on toxicants is that they actually build up and are stored in fat cells in the body, and that when you have too many toxicants, that you will create more fat cells, not because you're taking in too many calories, right? But because you're taking in too many toxicants, and your body can't process them out, and when it does start to process them out, it actually doesn't get them all the way out, and so it's replaced with different fat cell amounts that was before. So these are known as incidents. So if we're going to detox, we have to go through the process of properly detoxifying. Number one, we have to unlock it from that fat cell, right? And so once we unlock it, then it has to go somewhere healthy. And so we have to neutralize it by making it water soluble. And then once it's water soluble, we just can't let it sit in the bloodstream. We have to flush it out. We have to eliminate it. Those are the 3 steps. So how do you do that? Number 1, we have to up our antioxidant intake. Where do we find antioxidants? Any guesses?
Mm.
Vegetables.
Mm.
Berries are a good example of a fruit that's high in antioxidants, but vegetables are the most antioxidant dense food unit on the planet. So the more vegetables, especially darker in color, the more antioxidants we get. Hydrate. Once we get those antioxidants in, like let's say we start eating raw onions to get that glutathione in. Now we hydrate because those toxins are coming out of the fat cells and we need to flush it. And then how do we stimulate that bowel movement? I know every time I go for a run, 5 minutes in, I'm like, ooh, where's the toilet? Right? Same thing in the gym. You get moving and it gets you moving, right? And so if you're not having at least one bowel movement a day consistently, you're not getting enough out. You're constipated. Now you might not get diagnosed with constipation until you get to 3 days or more, but absolutely less than 1 a day. Really, 3 trains in, 3 trains out.
Mm-hmm.
3 trains into the train station, 3 trains out. Otherwise, you got too many trains in the station, and not enough people getting to their destination. We got to get moving. Yeah. What are metabolism boosting foods? So I would say the number 1 metabolism is broccoli. Broccoli is probably the most pound for pound nutrient dense food on the planet, and I do not eat enough. I keep it in my deep freezer, and it's unfortunately stayed there way too long. Right? Got to get it out. And the best way to consume broccoli is actually steamed. Lightly steamed. Put a little sea salt on there if you like pepper, a little black pepper. You can put seasonings on it to make it taste good. I know steaming food doesn't usually make it taste good, but in broccoli's case, it actually makes it taste good. I'll add a little olive oil on this after steaming, not during the steaming, because it'll break down the olive oil and denature. But after steaming it, that broccoli is fantastic. If you want to eat it raw, it's also very nutrient dense raw, just a slightly different bioavailable property, raw to steam. Okay, if you saute it, you're going to lose more nutrients out of it. Still good for you, right? Better sauteed broccoli than sauteed candy, right? But yeah, absolutely. Next would be salmon, right? So you're getting a protein-rich source that's also omega-3 rich and requires that thermogenic effect to break it down, burning more calories in the process of creating more energy. Berries, great for smoothies. I love berry smoothies. In fact, my daughter's fallen in love with smoothies lately. She loves to fill it up with berries. But a thing is, she can't do dairy, so it's a dairy-free yogurt, usually a coconut yogurt, oat milk yogurt, or an almond milk yogurt. So we get some probiotics in there. We'll do a few chia seeds on top of there for some more omega-3s, and then we'll do a scoop of protein powder. And oftentimes I'll throw the max greens on top of there as well. Ginger. Now this is a spice. Now you can get it as a root, and you can juice it, which is a very actually nutrient-dense way of getting that. But if you get it in the powdered form as well, you can put that in. It's a fantastic spice as far as nutrient density and its thermogenic effect in your body. I like to add a little bit of ginger in my wellness drink. I'll do a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Write this down. Mm-hmm. Tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Tablespoon of lemon juice. A dash of cayenne pepper to increase blood flow. Dash of ginger. A little bit of sea salt to get some of those minerals in there. A little bit of stevia to flavor it. If I feel like I'm missing on probiotics or prebiotics, or I'm having more of an allergic response, I'll put some raw honey in there. Not too much because I don't want to boost my sugars. But yeah, that ginger is just a key component of that drink as well. You can fill it up with water as much as you want to dilute the strength of that, but just drink it all down and you can drink as many of it. That's a fantastic drink. Green tea is also a fantastic drink. I don't like it very much. It actually gets my metabolism too high. I do too much of a detox reaction, end up on the toilet a little quicker than I'd like to. But it is, as far as its properties and helping you lose weight, there's almost almost no beverage that can be food. And then it's not so caffeine heavy that'll mess up your cortisol, either, which cortisol levels will throw off your blood sugar, your hormones. Lemon, great for detox, great for antioxidants, gives you an energy boost in the morning. Use that and replace the coffee. And then almonds. Almonds are very rich in healthy fats, healthy protein, and those micronutrients. If you're low in magnesium, almonds are a great source of that as well. Protein increases calories out. This is the thermogenic effect. And so really, a calorie is not a calorie. You can have a plate full of broccoli and a tablespoon of peanut butter, and it has the exact same amount of calories. Which one's going to fill you up more? Yeah. Yeah, you might be tempted to say peanut butter because it'll get stuck in your mouth. But, give it 30 minutes. Which one's actually going to stick with you? It's actually going to be the nutrient food. So you could replace this with a Twinkie and you'd have the same relationship. Twinkie versus peanut butter, same amount of calories. Peanut butter is actually more nutrient dense. But which one's better? So there's good choices and there's better choices. So work your way up that chain. Try to get to better and better choices. One of the things that I've started to really focus on and not beating myself up with these choices is you never get it perfect, no matter how hard you try. But I'm always better today than I was yesterday. And I'm worse today than I will be tomorrow. All right? And so we just press forward. So a lot of people talk about ketogenic diet this time of year. It gets really popular, especially if you shop at Costco. You see a lot of keto stuff. Keto is not necessarily healthy. You can go on keto and you can lose a lot of weight and miss out on a lot of nutrients. Clean keto versus dirty keto. Dirty keto is going to be a lot of processed ketogenic foods. Clean keto is going to be a lot of those raw or lightly processed foods. You get a lot of vegetables on keto if you do it wrong, you're eating a lot of burgers on a keto bun with keto cheese, and you might get some keto lettuce on top. Yes, ma'am.
My kids' counselor is very thin, very actively around keto diet.
Yeah, you can do keto wrong. And keto is not necessarily dangerous if you do it right, but if you're just doing it for weight loss, you're going to get yourself into trouble. We need to be doing this for health. So this is a misconception that fat makes us fat. In fact, fat is one of the most nutrient-dense foods out there. It's calorie-dense, but what fills you up? A gram of fat or a gram of carbs? When you have one head of broccoli or a tablespoon of coconut, the coconut oil is actually going to fill you up more than the broccoli oil. Doesn't mean that one's better than the other, right? I just said broccoli is a superfood. Coconut oil is likewise a superfood because it has a lot of those essential fatty acids. So we can't vilify fat. Now, there are certain fats that we do want to. Anything that's been processed or heat treated is going to be less, it's going to have less integrity than something that's raw. So like a raw coconut oil is way better, eons better than canola oil, which there is no canola plant in case you're wondering. Canola is a rapeseed oil that's highly processed and genetically modified, and so it contains more pesticides than most oils. Worse than that is the oil used at movie theater popcorn. You know what that one is? Cottonseed. They'll use it on the butter flavor for the popcorn, but it's not actually food. Cottonseed is not something that you can consume, and it's highly inflammatory. And so fats are really going to make you or break you. If you don't get enough fats, it's going to be really hard to get healthy. Your nervous system, most of the cells in the body are more than 50%. And so if you're getting bad fats, your nervous system is going to get highly inflamed. It's going to make it really hard for you to stay healthy. If you get really good fats, your nervous system is going to run more efficiently and allow this process of creating energy to work more effectively. So get those good fats. What's an excellent source of fat other than Avocados are great. That's another one. Nuts, almonds, yep, absolutely. Yep, chickpeas have a naturally occurring fat in there as well. Missing a big one here that's olives. Yep, chia seeds and flax seeds are very, very much rich in omega-3s. What did I just say? Olives, olive oil has been directly correlated in every culture with increased life. So it's fantastic fat to make you healthier. Another principle that you need to understand is you aren't just what you eat, you are what you eat. And so you can eat all sorts of clean foods, but if the clean foods ate bad foods themselves, they're not actually clean. Right, so we've been told for probably 2 or 3 generations now that chicken is healthier for you than beef. But what's the chicken eating? What does God create the chicken? Grubs and bugs, right? Some small rodents as well. What are they eating in our food processing? Corn, soy, some seeds, which seeds they're designed to eat. And most of it is genetically modified to get to the nutrient density that they're looking for, so that's a bigger bird, so they can sell you more for less. So that's chicken. What about cows? Yeah. So you want cows to be grass-fed. Ideally, 100% grass-fed and grass-finished, because then when it's grass-fed and grass-finished, just like the whey protein I talked about, an omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is between 1 to 1 and 4, depending on how well it was grass-fed. But when it's not 100% grass-fed, if all it says is grass-fed, it doesn't say that 100% on it, it only has to be 80%. And ideally for the farmer, it's not going to be grass finished, it's going to be corn finished. So they'll spend 80% of their life just eating grass, and then the last 20% they'll eat corn, and it'll fatten up really fast, induce all these stress hormones. Oftentimes they'll end up with cancers or metabolic diseases of their own, and they slaughter them, and they throw that grass fed on the label and sell it to you for $70. You get the 100% grass fed, 100% grass finished, same price, but now it's still got that right ratio, none of the hormonal issues, and none of the metabolic disorders. So much healthier. Well, yes.
You know, I have my sister's mother-in-law also having stuff. They have a large cattle feeding operation in central Nebraska.
Probably no grass involved.
No grass involved. Always corn here. And the
Oh, the antibiotics.
the antibiotics.
Yeah.
I am antibiotics.
Yeah. Probably
And-
use drug hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her doctor on the western part of the state told her always says that she cannot, she told her family, they've been in a generation, they will not change.
Yeah.
Because of the fact, bottom line, they can't afford to.
Yeah.
In theory.
Even just to cut out a little patch where they could
No.
feed some cows
No,
grass
no.
costs too much.
Yeah, my doctor had like the exact same thing to get off. And she buys all of their meat
Yeah.
from a different place. Other than her own. Other than her own.
Now, the one thing that's not listed here is organic. Organic only has to be 50%. So it's a step in the right direction, and especially when you're looking at dairy cows, that's better. But if you're getting organic beef, it's probably only 50% grass-fed and probably not. So ideally, grass-fed. So, but when we look at this, we have to look at what motivates you, right? Because, you know, when you start with why, we can overcome in this process. But let's talk about thermogenesis real quick. And this is eat versus need. So exercise. Okay, activity thermogenesis. So exercise, activity, thermogenesis, and non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So basically the way you're burning calories. This is about 5% of your calorie output in a day, and this is about 80% of your caloric output in a day. And so What's really hard for us, right, is going to be consistent, right? Even setting up a workout in our living is hard. But most of your caloric output is here. What's going to make a bigger difference? A commitment to go to the gym 3 days a week, or a commitment to take the stairs instead of the elevator every day. Stairs is creating habits on a daily basis that actually allow you more activity that's non-exercise related is going to do that. So taking shortcuts because you're tired actually isn't going to help you at all. But what's going to help you more than that is those simple lifestyle choices that don't require us to make that commitment. Should we? Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, the best way to do this is high intensity intervals. And so what we look at with high intensity workouts is really just getting you to your 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 level on an interval basis, anywhere between 20 seconds at a time to a minute at a time. And doing that for between 6 and 15 minutes. And so, right, we're talking about this, 30-day challenge and getting 45 minutes a day. I don't want you to get that all at once. In fact, I don't want you to ever work out for more than 30 minutes at a time. If you're going to the gym and you're going for more than 30 minutes, you better be taking a long shower and sauna bath and hot tub, or getting some time in the pool where you're just soaking, or getting like a stretching class in. And the intense part is just, you can get up to 22 minutes, 23 minutes, but really all you need is that 6 to 15. And what you get is almost 72 hours of thermogenic effect where your energy output stays high, where your metabolism stays high. And your 8 to 10% is not my 8 to 10, or your 80% to 100% is not my 80% to 100%. Where I might require burpees to get there, you might just have to walk with dumbbells and doing this to get yourself to that 80 to 100%. And so find your 80 to 100%. Find your routine that you can do on a daily basis. Now we do Max T3. Most of you got that when you got your 5 Essential Starter. You got this bookmark, and it has a code to those classes. And there's 15-minute workouts online for you to be able to use as a starting point, right? If you just use that all the time, you'll eventually, there's like 90 workouts. It's going to take a while. You're not going to burn out in 30 days from doing that. But eventually, you'll get tired of doing the same thing, but you'll know the principle of what we're going and what we're going for, and you'll get a variety of different movements that you can do. And in these videos, it actually shows modifications. So if you can't do a full pull-up, you can get some bands and pull on the bands. Or if you can't lift the dumbbell, you grab some soup cans and you lift the soup can. I mean, in the hospital, sometimes they'll get people to lose this massive amount of weight just by lifting their arms over the head at a certain amount of time a day, and it'll get their heart going, it'll get their metabolic rate going, and it'll get them going. But that's just an incredible resource to get started. Our partner gym, Fit for Lincoln, they do workouts that are no more than 25 minutes long. And you do 3 a week, and your body mass, your body percentage, body fat percentage, it'll change. Start getting more muscle, start getting less fat, and you start seeing what is the vision for your life. If we start with why, we can overcome anything. But we all want to start with not even the how, we want to start with the what. We start with, oh my goodness, I haven't gotten to the gym in 2 years. This epidemic has really done me in. I mean, I've gained so much belly fat, lost all my tone. But we're starting with the what. What's your why? What's your why in this process? Why do you want a healthy metabolism? And really, even avoiding heart disease or avoiding cancer or not getting fat or not getting sick with COVID, that's a bad reason. Because it's not going to last. It's not going to persist, because once you've avoided that for 5, 10, 30, however many years, it really has no value unless there's something else that's there. Right? And so for me, it's and my daughter, my sons, my wife, you guys being able to be here, for you guys, when you guys don't get adjusted, you don't get to stay healthy, you don't hit your health goals. God created me to help you hit your health goals. And so I have to stay healthy. Let alone, no patient is going to go to a doctor then they're healthier. Right? The second you start being healthier than me is the second that I'm no longer qualified to be your doctor. Right? Because you now know more than I do. Right? And I always encourage you guys to continue to learn more. And that's why we do these classes on a monthly basis. So you have to set a vision for your life. Why are you doing this first? And oftentimes you'll find your why in an area where you've been wounded in the past. You'll find that motivating factor in that emotional place. And what you have to do is you have to ask yourself 7 times, 7 layers deep. You know, why do you want to lose? Why do you want to get your blood? Why do you want to process everything? Well, I want to be a good doctor. Why do you want to be a good doctor? Well, because I want to take care of my patients. I want them to get healthy. Why do I want my patients to get healthy? Because they're sick and they're suffering and they're dying, and it's not something that God wants for them. And ultimately, the deeper you go down that, I just got 4 layers. And it started getting pretty close to why I'm here. Right? The deeper you get with that, the more it'll resonate with who you truly are and who God is. Work your way down there. So when we're creating habits, we have to make sure that we're getting a reminder, we're getting a routine, and we're getting a reward. Oftentimes we miss out because we're not reminded, right? So if we don't put it in the calendar, you know, if you guys didn't put the calendar in for today, probably wouldn't have been here, right? Some of you put it in for last week and didn't get the reminder that I wasn't showing up and you showed up anyways. So good for you for showing up, but then building that routine. If your routine is showing up to every single one of these classes, I think you're going to learn more than if your routine is just catch them every time it piques your interest. Yeah. Yeah, you think when I teach on leaky gut, this might have something to do with that. And your metabolism might be affected by how well your body is getting food through. When I talk about blood sugar, that might have something to do with this as well. So building those routines in exercise, eating healthy, getting food prepped, and then the reward. What's your reward? All right, so 30-day challenge. Some of you might say the reward is what you get out of doing the challenge. You see that picture, or you look in the mirror 30 days from now, and you start to see the beginning of some definition in your arms or your abs, chest. It's like, I like that. That is its own reward. But for other people, it's actually, I feel more energetic. I'm spending more time with my kids at night before I go to bed, or I'm playing with my grandkids. Actually, when we get down on my hands and knees again, that becomes its reward. Sometimes it's like, okay, I get through these 30 days. You know what we're going to do? Date night. We're going to go out. I'm going to watch a movie. I haven't been to the theater since COVID hit because of this stupid pandemic. Right? And we reward ourselves out. So it's individualized. I'm not telling you what your reward is or how you're fulfilled because everybody's a little bit different. It kind of speaks to your love language a little bit and how you're going to get that, to build those things in. And then some of the most common barriers here, beyond even that, is a lack of consequences. If you're going to do this 30-day challenge, what's the consequence if you go home and over the weekend, you finish a bottle of wine with your significant other? Well, my consequence for you is that you have to start over. What's your consequence for you? It's going to be, I have to go run a mile. It's going to be, I have to only eat steamed broccoli for a week straight. Is it going to be, I have to take cold showers? Right? And again, it's going to be different. Lack of support. Who's doing it with you? Who's your accountability partner? Because I'll tell you what, one of the first times I was challenged to do this, I came home all excited and I told my wife what we were going to do. And guess what day I finished that challenge? Yeah, the day 1 was the day none. So I did not finish that challenge. But it was because I didn't have that support. We weren't really together. Now, it doesn't have to be significant. In fact, as far as accountability and mindset go, I would say you should do the challenge together, but have a different accountability. Do it with somebody else. So for those of you that are on Facebook, I'm going to build a Facebook group for the 30-day challenge. If you want some accountability with this, I challenge you to post your progress picture. It doesn't have to be for anybody else. I want it to be for you. And no, you don't have to wear a bikini for this, right? But something that shows off what your body is doing so that we can see that transformation take place. Having unrealistic goals. If you've struggled to lose 5 pounds in a month before, setting a goal of 10 might not be realistic. In fact, it might not be a sustainable goal, even if it is realistic. Most people, when they do this, they lose between 10 and 15 pounds. But I want it to be sustainable. And so if you've never been able to consistently lose 5 pounds, start with 5, and then make it another goal, not just sustain that 5, but to build it up to 7 rather than 2, so that you're slowly making more progress. No starting point. That's another reason for the progress picture, to give yourself a starting point. And you give yourself a plan with how to do that. And then that feeling isolated, let's get a group around this thing and give yourself some time. I want you guys to write down from that list and from the previous list as well, what are the 3 barriers that are going to be? Maybe you just need to circle it or go through it, or write that down so you know what your barriers are going to be and you have to go forward. So it does start with the goal. And so what is that goal going to be? Some of you might be to add some weight, some of it might be to add some muscle mass, but write it down. If it's not written down, it's not real. But if you have that big enough life, you can do it. But if you're going to set a goal, you should set it SMART, right? Who's heard of SMART, the acronym? Hopefully. So your goal should be, number 1, specific. Number 2, measurable. Number 3, attainable. Number 4, relevance, right? Going to Disneyland by January 1st is not going to help with this, right? And then time bound. It should have an end date. So I'm not going to break all those down. There's lots of classes and lots of resources. How to set SMART goals. There's actually a TED Talk on how to set SMART goals. But I encourage you, when you're making that goal, not start with just one goal. That's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. That you actually look at this. Another myth is that if you feel healthy, you are healthy. And this is a very easy trap to fall into. I find myself falling into this trap all the time. It's very easy to say I feel bad, so I must not be healthy. But when it comes to health, feeling good is an answer. In fact, it's function, right? This is the very first thing I taught you guys when you started care in my office, is that health is in no way a function of how you feel. Health has absolutely everything to do with how well your body's functioning. Because when you look at it from a feeling perspective, feeling good is the same at 60% as it is at 99%. There's no difference in that. But for you to feel bad, you're below 60%. You're losing function to get there. And so how do we keep your body functioning high? Because dysfunctioning leads to disease. We eat too many burgers, too many sides of fries. We don't get enough exercise. We surround ourselves with toxins. We don't get adjusted. And that function starts to go down. And eventually we show up at the doctor's office with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high insulin levels, high A1C, all these blood metabolic markers that are way off the charts. We say, but I feel fine. And the doctor says, well, here's 10 different medications so that you don't die. And there is a time and a place for those medications. But will they ever address the function? No, they're not designed to address it. Staying on high blood pressure medication for a lifetime is not the design of the blood pressure medication. It's there just to keep you from having a heart attack today. And will it keep you from having a heart attack forever? Most people that have heart attacks have heart attacks on low blood pressure. Really, really. So what do we have to do to address the function? What is health? Health is function. Function is controlled by your central nervous system. For your heart to beat, your wants to be put on your leg, the signal has to run from the brain down the spinal cord, out those nerves to every organ, cell, and tissue. Doesn't happen any other way. You can't eat organic food instead of taking care of your spine. You can't exercise instead of taking care of your spine. You can't detox instead of taking care of your spine. You can't meditate instead of taking care of your spine and nervous system. And we know that because if we sever all the food, all the nerves that go to your digestive organs, doesn't matter how much organic. Doesn't matter if I'm taking protein, doing my protein smoothie. Doesn't matter if I'm taking the detox system every day for 30 days. Doesn't matter if I get the greens and the essentials. If I cut all those things. Doesn't matter if I'm exercising. I cut all those things. You know, we have to maintain that nervous system. How do we do that? Well, the adjustments, right? This is a huge part of this challenge, making your adjustments, but also the home care. You know, I've been doing this for about 10 years now. And what I've realized in this 10 years is correcting your spine, keeping a healthy functioning nervous system has less to do with me and more to do with you. What you're 40% of your correction has to do with how well I do. 60% of the correction has to do with how well. That still means I have to be a good doctor, right? That doesn't let me off the hook. But if you don't do your wobbles, you don't do your traction, you don't do your body weights on a daily basis, when you throw your purse on your shoulder, every day is one adjustment a week or an adjustment every other week and undo this pressure for 8 hours a day. Or if you're wearing a backpack, this pressure for 8 hours a day. Or if you're driving, this pressure every single day. Or you're working on your laptop. Or you're working on your smartphone. It's not going to undo it. One adjustment is not enough to undo that. And so, you know, many of you have probably heard this in progress. You're not going to leave your house without brushing your teeth. Right? Because what happens if you leave your house without brushing your teeth? You get stinky because they're rotting. Unfortunately, your spine doesn't stink nasally when you don't do your wobbles. But what happens is you get rot in your spine through the process of degeneration and arthritis. How do you combat the arthritis? Same way you combat teeth rot. You brush it, you wobble it, you traction it, you put your weights on, you show up to your adjustments on time, and guess what happens? You don't walk forwards through that progress of degeneration. You walk backwards. You end up with a healthy spine. You guys heard the story of my dad. You know, he was worse off than any of you. Really. Full-blown congestive heart failure. Had no idea. Felt fine. And then we started taking action. We started with the spine. The spine opened the door. And it was the catalyst to allow the other stuff to work. And so as we got the spine healthy, we introduced the other things. He started to change his diet. He started exercising. He started detoxing. He reduced the stress in his life. He changed his mindset about things. And as that happened, what happened to his heart? It got so healthy that I got ran over by a tractor, pinned under it for 30 minutes, and walked out of there without a heart. You take any other person that has congestive heart failure, and you run them over with a tractor, what's going to happen? Their heart's going to explode, or their blood vessels, or an internal organ of some kind. They're going to bleed out internally. And so I praise God that my dad. He did it at 59 years old. My first 2 years in practice were in Naples, Florida. Average age, 75. I have seen literally everything walk through my practice. And sometimes I'm shocked at the types of things that God can still do. We can live a lifetime of bad choices, and God can still redeem us. And he does. And sometimes it's miraculous and beyond scientific explanation, isn't it? Sometimes it's the power of prayer, with the Holy Spirit moving through us and outside of our nervous system. But I ask you this question. If you've lifestyled your way into a disease, say type 2 diabetes, what's the likelihood that without repentance, without turning around, right? Literally turning around, doing it a different way, that's going to take that type 2 diabetes away. No, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. He's not going to support that position. He's not going to support sin, because sin is literally just missing the mark. And we're missing the mark as a culture when it comes to nutrition, fitness, toxicity, spinal care, nervous system, mental, emotional stress. If we're getting these warning signs, there's something interfering with the communication out to those organs, cells, and tissues. And it starts with the nervous system. If you have friends or family that have these things, guess what? February starts tomorrow. What's the big holiday in February? Valentine's Day. We're doing Valentine's week. So Valentine's is a Monday. February 14th, we're going to love our spines, our friends and our family. People that you send to me during that week, we're going to love them. I'm going to give them the gift of a spinal exam and x-rays for a donation of a coat. I'm going to collect them and we'll distribute them through a nonprofit organization called Warmer Day. You have friends and family that haven't had their spines checked. Bring them that week. Winter's not over. Let's do a good deed, right? In return, also we'll get that nervous system. So that's going to be the first step for somebody that hasn't. And most of you have started this process. What are your action steps? So your action step number 1, 30-day challenge. Pick a date. Pick a date. Tomorrow's my day. Today was my last day to cheat. I bought some chocolates. So I can cheat, right? They're the ones I gave you. Those are not healthy chocolates. They're better, right? You know, they're not so bad. Well, definitely just relevant on the challenge. A little bit. They're very good, aren't they? They're very good. Pick a date. Pick a date to start. Set it on your calendar. Pick a date to go to the grocery store beforehand. Set up your workout plan before then. And then start. Take that progress picture. Because unless you have something to measure against, you're not. And then go. Take that out. Number 2, keep doing this, right? For those of you that are on Facebook and are already my Facebook friends and like the Facebook page, I'm going to invite you to the Facebook group, the Max Living 30-Day Challenge. And that'll be support. But a month from now, we're going to be done, right? Maybe some of us, or we'll have finished the 30-day challenge. What's next? Oh, even if you do this perfectly, you're still not going to have it all perfect, are you? There's going to be things I said tonight that you don't remember next. And so as much as I've given you all these resources, right? Most of you got this one. Some of you got an older one. You got the original nutrition plan book. And now this one's actually out of print. We've moved on to the compact version, right? There's more information constantly coming out. This is better than the one you got, right? It doesn't mean that one's completely wrong. Don't put the baby out with the bathwater. But maybe you need to update. So these $10 a piece. Also, got health recipe book. I've got a limited supply of these. You can print out more if we need to. $10 for this. If you don't have any of these because you started when I was selling this one or nutrition plan book, free for the prices. So $20 for all 3 of these. So plus you get to use your discount card on that as well. Yeah, such a deal, right? But yeah, surround yourself with this environment. Next month on February 28th, you guys can turn around and look at what's coming up on our calendar. We have the stress, sugar, and inflammation. So if you know a diabetic, type 1 or type 2, they need to be here. That'll be Monday, February 28th, 6:30 p.m., same time, same channel, right? And we'll run this back. This is the one I was supposed to do in December, but I made some poor lifestyle decisions and my immune system dropped and I got it, right? Some of you remember that, the 2-week period where I didn't do much adjusting. But we're going to learn all about stress, sugar, and inflammation. It's not just to diabetes, Also Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease, and so on. Also, a couple things to support you in this month. You'll notice on Saturdays at 10:15 a.m., we're going to do a workout. And who shows up to that workout is going to determine what type of workout you guys are going to pick. The baseline is going to be a flexibility class, get you guys moving, get the increased blood flow, but not high intensity, unless you ask for it. If you show up and ask for it, we'll do it. It doesn't take me much to come up with the high intensity classes because I've been doing them for a while. But absolutely. We also have partner gym. Over on the counter, there's cards for Fit for Lincoln. They'll give you free 1 week worth of classes. And you can do 2 days for the entire week. You can check it out. They do those high intensity interval trainings, and they're in the middle of the 6 weeks challenge of their own. Pick one up, try it out. It's absolutely fantastic. I prepared for the half marathon. I was going to do it on my own and hit a wall at about 3.5 miles where I couldn't go further. I started cross training with them as well as the running. I completed 13.1 miles. Yeah, 2 months later. So it works. The other thing, don't forget about the Friends and Family Week. Like I said, do this together. That's definitely going to get you there. And then if you know somebody that's uninsured, every second and fourth Friday, I go out to People City Mission and I donate 2 hours a month, 4 hours a month total, to adjusted people back in. So if you know somebody that's in a bad situation, send them over there. That's from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on the second. And then also on the fourth Friday at noon, for those of you that pray, that believe in the power of prayer, we are meeting together to pray for one another, to pray for the culture of health in Lincoln, and to see God's will done there. And we had our first meeting this last Friday. The next one will be Friday the 25th at noon. I know that doesn't work with everyone's work schedule, but for those of you that are off during that time, swing by over the lunch hour, join us, and we'll pray. Pastor Beth has a sign-up list if you want to be included in the mailing list on that, if you want to pray for us, even if you can't make it on the 25th at noon. Yeah, join us in prayer anyways, no matter where you're at with that. We'll send out messages heading that up for sure. I think that's about it, except for the reason why everybody's still here and hasn't left yet, right? Freebies, free stuff, right? Yeah, you forgot to pull out your, I didn't write your names on them, so you better remember. Better have that ticket still. All right, so everybody's winning something. Okay, so don't worry about that. We're going to give out the good stuff first. Let's see, what did I want to give away? I got some greens. Greens are excellent. So I believe this is about a $30 value. And for people that don't like powders, don't like the sweet powdery form, this one's going to 685-1665. Hey, there you go. Give it up for Deb.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. That's prize number 1. Prize number 2, we're going to do 2 tickets to the Home and Garden Show. That's going to be Valentine's weekend, right before. Yep. So take your SO out. That's going to be going to 685-1666. Number of man. Got that one? 666. Anybody got that one? These you do. All right. So you also get a essential oil and A to Z guide on how to use it in there as well. So good job, Darlene. Did you find it? Okay. Next, we're going to do a couple of powder samples. We've got a paleo protein sample and a GI Revive. Great for leaky gut. It's also good for just good gut health. I like the combination of the bone broth protein with the leaky gut powder. This is going to be 685-1669. 9 in the back. All right. That's you guys. All right. Let's see, we've got a couple left here. 685-1667. We got Mike. What did I give you? So no tickets for you. We're gonna give you a Revive and a protein powder as well. All right, next one is gonna be an oils guide and 2 tickets to the Home and Garden Show. That's 685-1672. That's there, all right. Good. Excellent. All right, couple more left here. Oh, hand me those chocolates. I think we got 3 left in the box. Anybody like those chocolates? 685-1671. There you go. You get chocolate.
Oh,
Did you try it?
I don't eat chocolate.
You don't eat chocolate. All right, we'll save that for someone else. Let's get you. You got the oils guide. We'll get you the Revive powder. There you go. You're welcome. All right. I give the chocolate to somebody that wants it, right?
Yeah.
Probably save it for myself. All right. I know. Last flag before the sting. 685-1668. There you go. Steve likes chocolate, right? Yeah. Just set that on the counter as the motivation. Right? All right, let's get you a couple of people. Gotta get rid of them. I can't use them. Yep. All right. 685-1664.
Mine.
Yours.
I want to go to
You want to go to the show? Go. You need one or two tickets. You want 2 tickets. There you go. And an oils guide and a sample. All right. 685-1673.
That's me.
That's you. All right. Oils and that. Yeah, and last one. Is that Kyle?
Yeah.
685-1670. You got it. So what did you get already? Well, did you get a ticket?
No.
Oh, whoop. Did I snag one of those for them? All right, there we go. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, everybody want something? All right, thank you so much for coming. Remember, supplements are all 15% off tonight, 20% if you're buying the challenge supplements, any of those, and any of the resources that you don't have, the recipe books, nutrition guide, those are free for $20. All right?
Can I just encourage you, if you haven't signed up for
Yes.
the prayer list, would you please do that? I want you, whoever is signing up right here is for people who are, just your prayer time. And just include, Dr. Vision has really upgraded healthcare in this area. Probably. Because prayer changes things. Doesn't anything else change that. We have like 50 people who have signed up.
I'm one of them.
Yes.